Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the Mr. Fix-It channel. I got the Suzuki GS850 in the shop again, and I got a little bit of work to do, so let's get into this.
I was sitting out there in the shed one evening, not doing too much of nothing, just kind of staring at the wall. And
Okay, so before I commit to doing the paint and body, this thing needs a clutch. I got some carburetor, just a little bit of carburetor tinkering to do. I need to put a back tire on it and a set of rear brake pads. Because I'm on a very tight budget on this project, when it comes to ordering clutch parts, I want to take the clutch apart first, see what's bad in there before I order anything. So I'm going to go ahead and start by taking the clutch apart. First thing is I got to drain the oil on this bike. I had to remove the exhaust. I already got that done. I'm going to drop that oil out. 21 millimeter. Since this thing hasn't been started in a few weeks, all the oil should be drained off of everything, so it shouldn't be a huge oily mess inside there. And while that's draining out, I need to take the rear brake lever off, get it out of the way of that clutch cover coming off. It's a 12 millimeter. Okay, now we got a ring of 8 millimeter bolts. We got to take all these bolts out. I'm just going to use my air ratchet, make it faster. Okay, there is 3 different length bolts in this clutch cover, and I don't worry so much about keeping track of where each bolt came out of each space, because when you slide these bolts into their holes, they're all going to stick out about the same amount. So if you put this longer bolt in where one of these short bolts in, it's going to stick way out. Vice versa, if you put one of these short bolts in where one of these long bolts go, it's not even going to thread in. And they all stick out about to the end of the shoulder there, the unthreaded part. So when you go putting these back in, as long as they're all sticking out the same amount like that one, then they're pretty much in the right place. Okay, so since that thing's being stubborn, I'm going to have to wedge something in between the clutch cover and the engine case to separate these two. And this is usually never recommended. If you can get it off another way, then do that. But if not, then use something thin, like I have this blade here, if I can get that to focus. This is a hose cutter, out of a hose cutter machine, and you could use a putty knife, would be about the equivalent of this, but it's sharp on one edge. And when I drive this in between, I'm going to do it where one of the bolts go through, because it's a raised boss and the gasket doesn't seal on that. So I'm going to drive it in right there, and that'll keep from damaging the gasket surface itself. And if you need to, you can move from one bolt to the next around this thing to pry it off of there. Alright, so these two bosses here in this side cover looks like 2 alignment pins, and I'm suspecting that these are corroded and holding this cover on, because usually it should have popped off by now. I've got it loose because it is starting to drip some oil. I'm going to grab my little propane torch and I'm going to heat these 2 places up and see if this will free up and come off of there. Alright, I shouldn't have to say this, but be careful. You got fire and fuel, right? Just, you know. This thing is really stuck on there. Well, this thing's going to take some effort to get off of here. I'm just going to keep working at it like this until it comes off. Alright, well that wasn't easy, and that was very destructive. So, but I don't think I damaged the gasket surface too bad. We'll clean all this gasket up and we'll check, and we'll see what we got to do if I screwed anything else up. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and scrape that gasket off of there first. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and pull the pressure plate off. These are 10 millimeter. That's loose. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be that loose or not. But I'm going to go ahead and pull the clutch stack out. Have a look here. A little wire clip. Just kind of hooked in to the clutch hub. Trying to get that out of there. Alright, so there's like a piece of wire back here. It's wrapped around the clutch hub. It's tucked into one of these holes. If you look in through here, you can see where they protrude through, and they got like a little hook. Can I focus on that? They got like a little hook on them, and you got to stick a scribe or something in there, a pick, and kind of push that over so that you can release that wire out of there to get that last steel plate out. You can see the rust that was going on in this engine. Everything in here looks okay, but the clutch was starting to rust, and there's some rust on this primary gear on the clutch basket. And that's what you get when these things sit outside for decades. So I'm not seeing much wear on these clutches. I mean, they got some wear, but I'm not seeing a lot. Like the steels look like they don't have any wear on them at all, although they are a bit rusty. I've seen clutches not slip that had way more wear on them than this, so I'm a little concerned about why the clutch is actually slipping. I may just order the friction discs, and I'll reuse these, but I'll clean them up with some sandpaper so that there's no rust on them, and they'll have like a little rough texture to them. Because I don't see any bluing, and there's no warpage going on, any noticeable warpage anyway. So I think I'm going to reuse these. I'm just going to replace these 8 friction discs. So there's 8 of these a piece, 8 steels, 8 frictions, and of course a gasket. I'm not really sure why this was slipping. It's possible that they're all just evenly worn equally, but that's usually not the case. Usually it's the first 1 or 2 in the stack that get worn, and it creates enough space for the clutch pack not to lock up again. I'm not sure. So I think I'm just going to order these, and I'll resurface these, and we'll just see. Yeah, so this just happened. Yeah, this heat wave we've had. I mean, this car's 20 years old, you know? I mean, I get it, but like, this is why I can't have anything nice. Okay, since I'm waiting on a clutch, let's go ahead and change this tire. So this was a used tire. It was donated by a friend of mine. It's got some wear on it, but there's still tread left. We'll go ahead and run it. Well, I finally got my gasket in. That took forever and 9 days. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a template of this gasket, so the next time I need one, I don't have to rely on the United States Postal Service. Leave me a comment if you've ever had problems getting packages through USPS. Okay, these are my new clutch frictions. I didn't go expensive on these. I literally just went to eBay and found the cheapest set I could find. So why was the clutch slipping? I measured the new, it measures 2.8 millimeters, and the old ones are 2.79, 2.78. So they're slightly worn, but I don't think this is why it was slipping. 2.7, so 7.4. It could be the springs, so I haven't ruled that out yet. It could just be where these plates had rusted and it glazed everything in here. So I'm just going to rough these up with some sandpaper, whatever I got to do, maybe the wire wheel, whatever. Clean all the rust off these, texturize them. I've got to soak these in oil, and then we'll get this clutch installed. Let's resurface these. But before I do that, I'm going to go submerge these in a bucket of motor oil. And when you do that, make sure it's the same motor oil you're going to run in your bike. Alright, just repeat that 8 times. This is 80 grit. I'm not trying to make them skinnier, I'm just trying to put a texture on them. I don't know if you can see that. Now I'm just going to clean these up real good, probably use some acetone. Okay, I did a little bit of work to this cover. I had to sand down this pin, get all the corrosion off of it. I had to sand down that pinhole there to get the corrosion out of it. And I also had to sand down this pin here to get the corrosion off of it. And I finally got this thing to where it'll just slide on and off now, like it should. And it's got to place the first steel disc all the way in the back, and then we got to put that little wire clip retainer thingamabob back in there. Now we get to play with this thing for 25 days to get it back in. So you can kind of rotate it around and find that one that's all the way in the back, and then get it stuck on your foot peg. I can look through here and see that hole in the back, so I'm just going to try and get this in here one shot. No, that didn't happen. Sorry, I know I'm putting shadows on this stuff. I'm trying to put as much light on it as I can. Let's see, I have to hold that down. Barely get my finger in there. Oh, yeah, this is going to require some patience. Okay, I can see right now that's not the right hole, because the hole I need goes into one of these holes, and that one does not. So I'm in the wrong hole. Here's the right hole. You ever take some... Alright, so that is a tricky little part to install, and you got to get it stuffed into the hole. You'll find the one that's all the way in the back of the basket right there, and it'll have a corresponding hole down here where the two ends have to push through. You got to get that wire in that groove, so you got to push that disc all the way back. And I used a pair of needle nose pliers. I wrapped it around. Sorry I didn't get this on film, my memory card ran out of space, but you wrap this around and you've got to use a flathead screwdriver and push that thing in all the way around while you hold it up here. Of course, this thing's rotating. I have it in gear, but the tire's off the ground, so you got to kind of hold this still, pull that wire around, use your flat screwdriver and push it all the way into that groove. And once you get it into that groove all the way around, you just stuff it into the hole. It was pretty tricky, but I got it in there. Okay, I got my clutches soaking in this bucket of oil. Alright, so once you get that first steel in, you want to go in with the friction. And then another steel. I don't think it matters, but because of the way these are stamped, there's kind of a rounded side and a sharp side. I just put them all the same way. That first one I put in, the sharp side was inward, so I'm just going to stack them all the same way. So other things that'll make your clutch slip is the oil that you put in it. Make sure that when you get an oil that it's rated for a wet clutch. And if you look on the back of the bottle, it should have a JASO rating, which is Japanese something or other, blah 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 acronym. And that it's safe for a wet clutch. If it says energy conserving oil, you don't want to use that with anything that has a wet clutch in it. I'm going to grease both sides of this gasket. For one, it'll help it stay in place, and two, it won't adhere to the engine, and I should be able to take the clutch cover back off and save the gasket. Okay, you got to turn this throwout bearing shaft kind of towards the front there, square as you can get it, and you got to poke it into that hole. And as you do that, you got to kind of crank this thing in at the same time. So it's a really tight fit. So you got to kind of wiggle it around to get it to kind of slide in. And then got to be careful because you got to set this angle of this lever at the same time. So you got to set it out a little further than where it would be, and then as you slide this together, so then you come out again. Let's go one more tooth out. Yeah, right there. I want to run this down the road real quick, but I'm not going to take you with me because I'm rapidly running out of daylight and there's a storm rolling in, but I'll let you know how it goes. Oh yeah, she's fast. Oh man, this is going to be a fun bike. I'm excited. I got one more thing I got to do to this, but it's getting late. I'm going to wait till tomorrow and we'll pick it up there. Yep, that's the gas tank leaking. I just can't, I can't win with this gas tank. I may be looking for a gas tank even after all this work. I've got to drain it into this gas can. Dang it. Alright, I want to install some new brake pads on the back. So we'll get this plastic out of the way here. I should be able to pull these out, but it's being a little difficult. Okay. Alright, that's all there is to it, changing the rear brakes. Alright, I want to pull the gas tank off and see if I can find that leak. Yeah, it is right there. It's just so big of a leak that it's not making bubbles. So the tank sealer did not fill in that leak right there. The instructions did say that I can reapply. So that means I gotta drain the tank and yeah. Oh boy. Well, I gotta recoat the inside of that gas tank with that tank liner. Hopefully I can get all the leaks to stop. This bike has been a project. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. And don't be afraid to fix it, even if it seems like it's unfixable. Thanks for watching.